Sleep 2 Business Genius, Business History, Fact Number 4 of 107-minute read. Written in clay. 5,000 years ago, a scribe in the ancient city of Uruk pressed a sharpened reed into wet clay and created something the world had never seen before, a written record of a transaction. It was the birth of accounting, and it changed civilization forever. By Sleep to Business Genius Ancient Commerce Uruk, Mesopotamia, c. 3100 BC. A clay tablet bearing cuneiform script, the world's oldest writing system and the earliest known accounting records, discovered in the ruins of ancient Uruk. Let your thoughts slow. Breathe. And follow this story back to the very beginning of the written world. A scribe is sitting cross-legged on the floor of a storeroom in the great city of Uruk, the largest settlement on Earth around 3100 BC. In his left hand he holds a piece of damp clay, shaped into a small flat rectangle no larger than his palm. In his right hand, a reed cut at an angle to a fine triangular tip. He presses the tip into the clay. A wedge-shaped mark appears. He rotates the reed. Presses again. A row of marks forms, then another. When he is done, he will set the tablet in the sun to dry and it will harden into something that can outlast kingdoms, empires, and the civilization that made it. He is not writing poetry. He is not recording a prayer. He is counting grain. The world's first writing was not about gods or kings or love. It was about business. About keeping track of who had what, who owed what, and what had moved where. Commerce invented the written word. The city that needed to remember. Uruk, Mesopotamia, circa 3400 to 3000 BC population, up to 80,000. By 3400 BC, Uruk was extraordinary. A walled city rising from the flat floodplain between the Tigris and Euphrates, it had grown to perhaps 80,000 inhabitants, an almost unimaginable concentration of human beings for its era. It had temples, craft workshops, a specialized workforce, and administrative institutions managing the redistribution of food, labor, and goods across a complex urban economy. And that complexity was the problem. When a farmer in a village of 30 people owes grain to his neighbor, both of them remember. When the temples of Uruk are collecting grain from hundreds of farmers, distributing rations to thousands of laborers, tracking the output of dozens of workshops and the movement of goods across a regional trade network, human memory is simply not enough. Something had to be done. The answer, arrived at gradually by Uruk's administrators, was to externalize memory, to store information outside the human mind, in a medium that could outlast the person who created it. The clay tablet was born not from artistic inspiration, but from the grinding, unglamorous pressure of administrative necessity. The evidence. The earliest clay tablets ever discovered, found at Uruk and dating to around 3100 BC, record deliveries of barley and other commodities to the city's temples. They are administrative receipts. Of the thousands of early tablets excavated, the vast majority concern economic transactions, inventories, rations, labor records, and goods received. Accounting came first. Literature came centuries later. The reed and the clay. The technology was beautifully simple. Clay was everywhere in Mesopotamia. The alluvial soil of the river delta was rich with it. A scribe would take a fistful, work it smooth, and shape it into a tablet. Small enough to hold in one hand, flat enough to write on, thick enough not to crack when dried. The reed stylus was cut from the marshes that lined the rivers, its tip trimmed to a triangular point that left a distinctive wedge-shaped impression when pressed into soft clay. The writing system that emerged from this technology is called cuneiform, from the Latin cuneus meaning wedge. Scribes rotated and combined wedge marks in different arrangements to represent objects, quantities, and eventually sounds. It was not, at first, a system for recording language. It was a system for recording numbers and things, a symbolic shorthand for the transactions and inventories that the city's administration needed to track. A completed tablet would be left in the sun to harden, or in some cases baked in a kiln for more permanent records. Thousands have survived intact for 5,000 years, preserved by the very accidents of history that destroyed the cities around them. When Uruk burned, the clay tablets baked harder and survived. They are, in a very real sense, more durable than the civilization that created them. A clay tablet is indestructible. Fire, which destroys wood and papyrus and cloth, only makes clay stronger. The Mesopotamians accidentally created the world's most resilient archive. What the tablets recorded. The earliest tablets are strikingly mundane. 40 units of barley received. 37 jars of oil dispersed. The rations of a weaving workshop for 1 month. The livestock count of a temple estate. They read, across 5,000 years of silence, like the receipts stuffed in a shoebox, unremarkable in themselves, irreplaceable as a record of how people actually lived. But as the system evolved, what it could record expanded dramatically. Later tablets tracked loans and interest, land sales and boundary disputes, wages paid to workers, taxes levied and collected, the records of Mesopotamian merchants conducting long-distance trade. By the time of ancient Babylon, a full legal and financial infrastructure existed in clay, contracts, receipts, letters of credit, court judgments, and detailed business accounts spanning years of transactions. This was not just accounting. It was the foundation of commerce itself. Written records made it possible to conduct business across distances, over time, and between strangers who had no shared history of trust. The clay tablet was the instrument that turned local barter into regional trade, and regional trade into the beginnings of a global economy. From clay to cloud. The fundamental purpose of the clay tablet, to record what was received, what was owed, and what was spent, is identical to every accounting system that has followed it. Double-entry bookkeeping, 1494 AD, the spreadsheet, 1979 AD, and cloud-based financial software, 2000s, are all doing exactly what the scribes of Uruk were doing in 3100 BC. The tools changed. The need never did. The weight of a receipt. The scribe in Uruk does not know he is making history. He is doing his job, the same job he does every day, pressing marks into clay, recording the movement of goods through a complex administrative system that will crumble to dust and be forgotten for 4,000 years before archaeologists dig it back into the light. But in doing that job, he and his colleagues gave the world something of extraordinary lasting power. Not just accounting, but writing itself. The ability to store knowledge outside the human mind and share it across time and space. Every book ever written, every law ever recorded, every scientific discovery published traces its origin to that storeroom floor in ancient Uruk. All of it began with a handful of wet clay and the modest, practical need to remember how much grain came in. The most powerful technology in human history was invented by an accountant. Tags, clay tablets, a cuneiform Mesopotamia, a history of accounting, ancient writing, Uruk, business history, origin of commerce, sleep learning, economic history. Sleep to Business Genius weaves 100 fascinating business history facts into soothing, story-driven narratives. This is fact number 4 of 100. Part of 100 Facts About Business to Fall Asleep To, available as a full narrated video on YouTube.